Of course. Who am I? Some demon? You're trying to frame me?
All right, I'm going to record on my computer and the live stream is going on. All right, you can start anytime you like, and I'm going to do a screen share with the Mayapur Mangal Arti.
Beautiful, thank you. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Gurudasa Jayadvaita Swami Nitinamine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Puravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatari Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Caritamrta Shivasadi Puravinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada ki Jai, Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai, Prem Se Karo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta ki Jai, Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhana ki Jai, वृंदावन धाम की जय, मायपुर नवद्वीप धाम की जय, गंगा माई की जय, जमुना माई की जय, भक्ति देव की जय, तुलसी महारानी की जय, समवेद भक्त वृंद की जय. All glories to your Sama devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to your Sama devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to your Sama devotees, Hare Krishna. Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Jai Caitanya Caritamrta ki jai.
Jai Jai. Thank you so much, Radhesha Prabhu. And thank you, Tulsi Priya, for the Mayapur Mangal Arti screen share. And welcome to everyone for Sri Caitanya Caritamrta reading and class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj. It is Thursday, March 14th, 2024 in New York. And we are picking up where we left off, which is Adi Lila, chapter 7, verse number 124, according to my notes. And if anyone has a correction on that, that's great. Otherwise, we shall proceed. Thank you so much for being with us, Maharaj. So glad you could be here. Hare Krishna. Jai.
Thank you, Kendra Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sri Caitanya Caritamrta, Adi Lila, chapter 7, text number 124. Avichintya Shakti Yukta Sri Bhagavan, Ichchaya Jakadrupe Paya Parinama. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is opulent in all respects. Therefore, by his inconceivable energies, he has transformed the material cosmic manifestation. No purport there. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is speaking to Prakashananda Saraswati and the assembled sannyasis of Benares. Text 125. Unless Maharaj, you have anything you'd like to say about this, 2124.
Hare Krishna, just a heads up, Radhesha Prabhu is going to be monitoring the chat this evening.
Thank you, Radhesha Prabhu.
Nothing to add from my side.
Text 125. Tatapi achintya shakte haya avikari prakrita chintamani tahe drishtanta yidhari. Using the example of a touchstone, which by its energy turns iron to gold and yet remains the same, we can understand that although the Supreme Personality of Godhead transforms his innumerable energies, he remains unchanged. I'll just continue reading until we reach a verse with a purport and then have something to say. Text 126. Nana ratna rashihaya chintamani hoite tatapi hamani rahe svarupe avikrite. Although a touchstone produces many varieties of valuable jewels, it nevertheless remains the same. It does not change its original form. Text 127. Prakrita vastute yadi achintya shakti haya ishvarera chintya shakti ite ke vismaya. If there is such inconceivable potency in material objects, why should we not believe in the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Purport. The argument of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu described in this verse can be very easily understood even by a common man if he simply thinks of the activities of the sun, which has been giving off unlimited amounts of heat and light since time immemorial, and yet has not even slightly decreased in power. Modern science believes that it is by sunshine that the entire cosmic manifestation is maintained. And actually, one can see how the actions and reactions of sunshine maintain order throughout the universe. The growth of vegetables and even the rotation of the planets take place due to the heat and light of the sun. Sometimes, therefore, modern scientists consider the sun to be the original cause of creation, not knowing that the sun is only a medium, for it is also created by the supreme energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Aside from the sun and the touchstone, there are many other material things that transform their energy in different ways and yet remain as they are. It is not necessary, therefore, for the original cause, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to change due to the changes or transformations of his different energies. This purport has very large-ish paragraphs, so perhaps we could break it up a little bit and speak about each individual paragraph before moving on to the next. And Anantashesha Prabhu, we are in Adi Lila 7:124. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Yes, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving a list of things such as the touchstone and how it has the potency to transform other things while it itself does not change. And Prabhupada also brings in the example of the sun with its inconceivable energies of heat and light, governing and providing energy for so many functions that take place throughout the universe. And it, if it changes, you can barely tell. Of course, these are material examples trying to give an idea of the inconceivable, inexhaustible potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we had discussed before that when Prabhupada speaks of a touchstone, Chintamani, Monier Williams' Sanskrit dictionary translates that as the thought gem, or the like the wish-fulfilling tree. It's the wish-fulfilling gem that exists in the spiritual world, able to transform things. And I actually had a question about this, but first I'd love to hear what Maharaj might have to say so far about this.
There's a question.
Yes, this is Prabhupada's giving, well, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's giving the example of a touchstone to illustrate the non-necessity of the Supreme Lord's changing. And Prabhupada says these are material examples. And we hear this often enough about the touchstone's potencies, and we understand that means Chintamani. But is that in truth something that does exist in the material world somewhere? We hear that Sanatana Goswami had one and wasn't very interested in doing much with it. But it seems like that's the sort of thing that people have been searching for, like pots of gold at the end of the rainbow. But you don't hear about them actually existing.
Yeah, I don't have a definitive answer for you. They're described as existing. As you said, Sanatana Goswami had one. I think for our purposes here, it doesn't really matter. There's at least the concept of a touchstone, which gives the idea.
Right. That was the only question that I had so far. Would you like to say anything on this first part of the purport?
No.
Praveen Krishnapur writes Kaimutya Nyaya. I'm not sure what that is. Perhaps he can explain. Kaimutya Nyaya. Otherwise, I had one thought as we're reading these.
I can say what Kaimutya Nyaya is. We discussed that the other day. I don't know how Praveen's thinking of it here, but it comes from Kim Uta, what to speak of. So we were discussing that in Bhagavatam, that the devotees not even interested in liberation. So what to speak of? Material benefits. So that's Kaimutya Nyaya. When one is not even interested in a greater thing than what to speak of, the lesser thing. That's Kaimutya.
We were discussing actually that quality of devotees this morning in our Bhagavatam class, and the topic came up of the meaning of Caitanya Caritamrta, which Srila Prabhupada writes in the introduction is the character of the living force and immortality. So Charita is the character of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, And this Amrita, the immortal, eternal nature of the living entity, is as long as they come closer to that quality of Krishna, then they move away from this transient, changeable material force and come closer to this all good qualities. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is exhibiting these good qualities and like a touchstone is untouched by all the material qualities. So I just thought that was a nice description.
Okay.
All right. Radhesha Prabhu, would you care to read the second part of this purport?
Sure. Instead of wasting one's time falsely deriving such indirect meanings from the Vedanta Sutra and other Vedic literatures, one should accept the words of these books as they are. In presenting Bhagavad Gita as it is, therefore, we have not changed the meaning of the original words. Similarly, if one studies the Vedanta Sutra as it is, without whimsical and capricious adulteration, one can understand the Vedanta Sutra very easily. Srila Vyasadeva therefore explains the Vedanta Sutra beginning from the first sutra, Janmad Yasya Yataha, in his Srimad-Bhagavatam. Janmad Yasya Yatonvayad Taratash Charteshva Bhignya Swarat. I meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna, the transcendent reality, who is the primeval cause of all causes, from whom all manifested universes arise, in whom they dwell, and by whom they are destroyed. I meditate upon that eternally effulgent Lord, who is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and yet is fully independent. The Supreme Personality of Godhead knows very well how to do everything perfectly. He is abhigya, always fully conscious. The Lord therefore says in the Bhagavad Gita that he knows everything, past, present, and future, but that no one but a devotee knows him as he is. Therefore, the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is at least partially understood by devotees of the Lord, but the Mayavadi philosophers, who unnecessarily speculate to understand the absolute truth, simply waste their time. Any thoughts, Mark? The only thought that jumped into my head was that the Supreme Lord himself is sometimes bewildered by himself. He can't even know himself, never mind a devotee know him. He's always the expanding quality of the Lord. So the foolish attempts of a limited living entity to encapsulate the glories of the Lord or foolishly conclude that they can understand him is exactly that, foolish.
Good.
Did we read through the whole purport, or I'm thinking we might have?
We skipped a part, but to be honest, I think we read this purport in our previous session. And we're 128 is actually, I think, where we're starting.
All right. Something in the chat from Ras Prabhu. Hare Krishna Maharaj. How do we understand?
Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Ross asks, how do we understand the difference between directly and indirectly conscious here?
The directly and indirectly. Of course, I haven't seen much commentary on that. There must be, but I haven't seen it. But one place, for example, we hear that the demigods who control the senses of all living entities drink nectar through the senses of the Brajbasis. Right? The Brajbasis are seeing Krishna, we're hearing Krishna's flute, and the demigods are experiencing that through the Brajbasis because they're controlling the senses of the Brajbasis, who are apparently controlling. So the Lord can be directly, so the demigods are directly and indirectly conscious. And one can assume that Krishna is directly and indirectly conscious also. Our experiences, Krishna is aware of. So what is that? Sarasya Chaham Ridi Sandavishta. Yes. Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hriday Sarjanatistiti. So, directly and indirectly. It would be interesting to see what the acharyas have commented on that. But it would be a little much to find it out right now.
Meanwhile, we have Praveen Krishna Prabhu's explanation. He's saying that, like the Chintamani stone, if even a material thing isn't being changed, then Kaimutya Nyaya, what to speak of the Supreme Lord? He's also not changing, just like that Chintamani.
Yes, good. Directly and indirectly. You've got me really, what's the word, intrigued. Really interested to know what they say about that. But first I would have to find the purport. And then it must be long. But I'm really interested. But I think we should go forward. Much as I might like to go backward.
I'm also recalling a seminar that Rabindra Swarup Prabhu gave on Srimad-Bhagavatam 111, and I do remember that question coming up and being addressed in the seminar. But again, I don't have that at my fingertips. All I can probably do is post a link to that lecture and have those interested dive deeply into it. There's some more activity in the chat box. Gurudas Prabhu says, Dandavats Maharaj and devotees. So can we think of indirectly as having heard but not experienced?
Well, I don't want to speculate. But it seems that Krishna can know both ways. Sometimes he asks, he sends Akrura to Hastinapur. What's going on with the Pandavas? How is Dhritarashtra dealing with them? And then he takes Akrura's report. So although he's personally able to know directly everything that goes on, in that instance, indirectly, he took the information from Akrura. So that's at least one legitimate indirectly.
If I'm recalling correctly, an example that came up in that seminar I was mentioning is that Krishna is Hrishikesh, so he owns the senses of everyone. So whether he himself as Vishnu Tattva Swayam Bhagavan personally sees something or someone else sees something, it's either direct or indirect, he's still seeing everything.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
Right. All right, Tulsi Priya says, all glories to the questioner whose question intrigues Maharaj. Indeed. So
Zoom booted me out for a moment.
Oh, Hare Krishna. Glad that you're back. And so we're now going to pick up with 128, which apparently is where we should have started in the first place.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
I must have given you the wrong ending verse last week, Kendra Prabhu. My bad.
No.
No reviewing.
It's all worth going over. Unlimited times. Gurdas Prabhu, would you like to read for us text 128?
Hare Krishna, thank you for the invitation. Although I'm not at all qualified. Jnanatam Yakadagana. Anavase Mahavakya Vedarani Tanam Ishvara Swarupa Panava Sarva Vishvadama. Translation. Vedic sound vibration Omkar, principal word in the Vedic literatures, is the basis of all Vedic vibrations. Therefore, one should accept Omkar as the sound representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the reservoir of cosmic manifestation. Purport. Bhagavad Gita 8:13, the glories of Omkar are described as follows. Om iti kaksharam brahma vyaharan mamanusmaran ya prayati jajandeham sayati paramam gitim. This verse indicates that Omkar or Pranava is the correct representation of the Supreme Personality of God. Therefore, if at the time of death one simply remembers Omkar, he remembers the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is therefore immediately transferred to the spiritual world. Omkar is the basic principle of all Vedic mantras, for it is a representation of Lord Krishna, understanding of whom is the ultimate goal of the Vedas, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Vedas cha sarver ahameva vedya. Mayavadi philosophers cannot understand these simple facts explained in the Bhagavad Gita, and yet they are very proud of being Vedantis. Sometimes, therefore, we refer to the Vedanti philosophers as Vedantis. Those who have no teeth. V means without, and Danti possessing. The statements of the Shankara philosophy, which are the teeth of the Mayavadi philosopher, are always broken by the strong arguments of Vaishnava philosophers, such as the great Acharyas, especially Ramanujacharya. Sripad Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya break the teeth of the Mayavadi philosophers, who can therefore be called Vedanti, tooth. As mentioned above, this transcendental vibration Omkar is explained in Bhagavad Gita chapter 8, verse 13. Om iti akaksharam brahma yaharan mamanusparan ya prayati jajandeham sayati paramam gatim. Quote, after being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. Unquote. If one actually understands that Omkar is the sound representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whether he chants Omkar or the Hare Krishna mantra, the result is certainly the same.
Gurdas Prabhu?
True.
I was going to say, it's quite a long purport. Maybe we could just pause in between large
Right.
chunks of it and discuss. So please go ahead. And
Okay. Other than the self-explanatory explanation about Omkar, which Prabhupada make extremely clear translation purport, I think the point Prabhupada also wants to make, and that we should endeavor very hard to understand, is that others chant Omkar, but they don't connect Omkar to Lord Krishna. definitely, very directly stating in Bhagavad Gita that Omkar is his sound representation. But the Mayavadis, the toothless Mayavadis, have no standing in concocting some impersonal impression of the Omkar. Personal can be just we're chanting Omkar, but we're not connect. We don't choose to connect it to Krishna. We want to be absorbed or merge into the Omkar. That may be their understanding, but Krishna here is very firm, and Prabhupada repeats it not once but twice in the purport. The same verse in the Gita for our understanding that the Om, which is present in many, the Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namo Nayanaya, it's present in so many different mantras, different personalities, but we are very firmly to understand that this Om is, although we don't chant it, we chant Hare Krishna mantra, but we have nothing against Om, and Om is to be understood by the teachings of the Acharyas as representing Krishna in full, as the purport said, nothing to add there.
The main thing here is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is criticizing the Mayavadis for pulling out some mantras from the Vedas and making a big deal over them. Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi. They pick up a few slogans and make that the whole story. They make these mantras, the Mahavakyas, the big statements of the Vedic literature. But just like sometimes people take up Bhagavad Gita and then they take some minor theme and they say, that's what Bhagavad Gita is all about, whether it's Karmanye Vadikaraste, do your duty. What is Bhagavad Gita? Do your duty. Or someone else says, what will repression accomplish? That's what Krishna is teaching in Bhagavad Gita. So you can pick up some minor theme and say, well, this is what it's about, but that's not proper. We have to find what is the major, what really is the main term in the Vedas. It's Pranava Sarvavedeshu, Krishna says. In all the Vedas, it's this mantra Pranava, Omkar, which he says represents him. So the purport is essentially going to be going on, pointing out the importance of Omkar, which represents Vishnu or Krishna. Even when it's Om Namo Shivaya or what have you, the Om is representing Krishna. So the worshippers of the demigods will get some benefit in that sense because they're chanting Om or because they're in the course of things worshiping Lord Vishnu. So it may not be their main purpose, but gradually they'll be elevated. So again, the point is that the essential vibration in the Vedic literature is Omkar, which represents Krishna.
We have a comment from Ananta Shesha Prabhu about stressing the one aspect, like Hindus quoting Karma Kanda. And then Tulsi Priyamata has a question about the Omkar. What does a Mayavadi meditate on at the time of death? It might be reasonable to assume that some New Age types and Western yogis might meditate on Om at the time of death. So would they be transferred to the spiritual world?
No, because they're not. The spiritual world may mean they can go to the Brahman impersonal effulgence, that they can do. What do they meditate on? They try to train themselves to fix their minds on the impersonal aspect of the absolute truth. But klesho tikatanas avyakta sakta chetasam. That's very difficult. And therefore they sometimes fix their mind on Vishnu or Ganesh or Suryadev or one or another deity, with the idea that, well, this is easier, I have something to fix my mind on. But in their conception, what they're fixing their mind on is not the ultimate feature of the absolute truth. It's just a stepping stone to get to that feature. So this, of course, was quite appealing to the impersonalists.
Praveen Krishnapuru wrote a question as well, but I think you just answered it. He asked what is the difference in meditation between the Omkar and Hare Krishna? If they're the same, then will the chanter reach the same destination? But I think you've just answered that they meditate on different forms. Because the Omkar is impersonal, they need some personal aspect of meditation. So,
Prabhupada said sometime that Omkar is impersonal and Hare Krishna is personal. And he gave the example of the president. You may address him as Mr. President, but Mr. President is generic. Mr. President could be, if we speak of the president, it could be Biden, it could be Trump, it could be Truman, it could be any number of presidents, because president is just a post. But when we speak of the president by name, then it's personal. So the Omkar addresses the president, the supreme absolute truth, but in an impersonal way. And Hare Krishna, personal. That one Muni was meditating, that may the controller of the universe be pleased to appear before me. He wanted to get a son. So he was standing on one leg meditating. May the controller of the universe appear before me. But he was foggy about who that controller was. So the three lords of the universe all appeared before him, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. For different reasons, each of them could be plausibly put forward as the as the Lord of the universe. So then the sage, so which of you did I call for? And Prabhupada discusses how each of them is the Lord of the universe. Lord Vishnu because he maintains it, Brahma because he creates it, or Shiva because he destroys it. So finally they all three agreed to appear together as his son, Dattatreya. But the point is that he was fairly foggy about what that absolute truth is. And that tends to be the impersonal situation, foggy. They know there's an absolute truth, but they're foggy about the identity of that absolute truth.
Praveen Krishnapuru furthers his question. He asks, so there is a difference between Omkar and Hare Krishna, since the definite destination is different?
No, even Om, one can attain me. Om iti ekaksham brahma vyaharan mamanusman. What is that? Yaprayati chajam deham sayati paramam gate. May attain the supreme destination. Elsewhere we'll find similar statements. It depends on what one's understanding. If one is vibrating Om with the idea of attaining an impersonal absolute, that's one thing. But if one is chanting Om with the idea of worshiping Krishna, that's another thing. But the devotees prefer to chant the holy name of Krishna.
Another comment in the chat there from Tulsi Priya. She says it's the impersonal conception Western yogis and sometimes devotees engaged in bridge preaching to them use, quote, the divine, similar to Maharaj's example of the president versus president so and so.
Yeah. A generic, absolutely. I remember I was preaching one time I was giving a class one time in Africa, so I forget which country. And I was sort of being a little soft and speaking about the absolute and the supreme and so on. And I could see the audience was sort of a little lost. So then I said, God. And, oh!
Shall we continue with the purport? Gurudas Prabhu, want to continue?
Gladly. Okay, sure. I think we stopped here. The transcendental vibration of Omkar is further explained in Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, verse 17. Pitaham asya jagato matadatta pitamaha vedyam pavitram omkara briksamayajur evacha. Quote, Krishna is speaking, I am the father of this universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I am the object of knowledge, the purifier, and the syllable Om. I am also the Rig, Sama, and Yajur Vedas. Similarly, the transcendental sound Om is further explained in Bhagavad Gita chapter 17, verse 23. Om Tat Sat Iti Nirdesho Brahmanastri Vedas Mata Brahmanastena Vedas Cha Yagyas Cha Vihita Pura. Quote, from the beginning of creation, the three syllables Om Tat Sat have been used to indicate the supreme absolute truth, Brahman. They were uttered by the Brahmanas while chanting Vedic hymns and during sacrifices for the satisfaction of the supreme, unquote. Throughout all the Vedic literatures, the glories of Omkar are specifically mentioned. Srila Jiva Goswami, in his thesis Bhagavat Sandarbha, says that in the Vedic literature, Omkar is considered to be the sound vibration of the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Only this vibration of transcendental sound can deliver a conditioned soul from the clutches of Maya. Sometimes Omkar is called the deliverer or Tara. Srimad-Bhagavatam begins with the Omkar vibration, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Therefore, Omkar has been described by the great commentator Sridhar Swami as Tarankura, the seed of deliverance from the material world. Since the Supreme Godhead is absolute, his holy name and his sound vibration Omkar are as good as he himself. Caitanya Mahaprabhu says that the holy name or Omkar, the transcendental representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has all the potencies of the personality of Godhead. Namakari Bahuda Nijasarva Shaktis Tatar Pitanyamita Swarne Nakala. I'm perfectly happy reading more. If someone would like to continue, that's also fine with me. Okay.
We could pause there.
While I'm thinking of it, I don't know whether in this purport or later, we find the explanation of how Om is Radha and Krishna. So again, it depends on one's understanding. For the impersonalists, Om is the impersonal Brahma, and for the devotees, Om is Radha and Krishna.
Whenever I hear something like that, Maharaj, I think of what I had heard, that Srila Prabhupada wasn't so much in favor of representing the Omkar in paintings of Radha and Krishna?
Not so much in favor understates the case. He objected to these things, which are commonly seen in the market and so on. The Omkar wasn't for Prabhupada.
Elsie Priya, please go ahead. You have your hand up.
Krishna. I was just wondering, Maharaj, I'm sorry, Gurudas Prabhu was reading something and I heard the phrase, I wasn't looking at the screen, a database, and I heard the Supreme. And since I brought up the divine, I was just wondering, Prabhupada uses a wide variety of nomenclature, different phrases to describe Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme, the personality of, there's a lot of them. And I'm just wondering, if there was any sort of structured way why he would use one phrase over another, or if it was just as the mood strikes, what he would use to describe.
Well, sometimes it would be the commentator. The commentator uses a particular word. It's better suited to something like divinity or the absolute or something. But it means also that we're not, what's the word? Straitjacketed. You have to say Krishna. You can't say the divine or something. No, you can use, but the point is to bring people to Krishna, to the personality.
Thank you.
So I'm happy to read, or someone else can read.
Thank you, Gurudas Prabhu. Let's look at the chat just for a moment here. Ross Prabhu says, how does Prabhupada use the word absolute here and in general? And then he gives the instance, since the Supreme Godhead is absolute, his holy name and his sound vibration, Omkar, are as good as he himself.
Yeah, well, let's take a look and see how absolute is defined. It's Param Brahma, the supreme, free from relativity or mixture. So again, it's the, let's see, let's get a noun here. Yeah, something not dependent upon external conditions for existence, for its specific nature, size, etc., as against relative, the absolute, something free from any restriction or condition, independent of some or all relations, perfect or complete. So that's absolute. Comes from absolutus, unrestricted, unconditioned. Yeah. So this is Krishna. He's absolute, unrestricted. Is that okay?
Jai. Radhesh Prabhu, could you read the next comment in the chat?
The next comment from Murari Gupta Prabhu says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, chanting Om doesn't seem to polarize people as much as Hare Krishna. Would there be much value in retreats run by devotees that emphasize chanting Om over Hare Krishna with some yoga asanas thrown in?
It polarizes us. I don't know if it polarizes other people, but the Prabhupada chanted Hare Krishna. That's what he did. So we can think, no, it would be better to chant Om, or it would be better to do this, it would be better to do that. And all right, if you bring people actually to chanting Hare Krishna, then what can we say? It's a success. But lots of times times all we find is that you're in there with the own crowd and not really moving anything forward. So then one could ask, what's the use? But I don't want to second guess people out in the field. If they're actually bringing people to Krishna consciousness, we don't care if they're chanting Om or Melancholy Baby or, anything that brings people to Krishna consciousness, then Haribol. But it has to bring them to the point. Not just that yes, this is my strategy, but the strategy doesn't really do anything. It's just, And we see that generally yoga, I don't know how much we get from it, but in Hong Kong, for example, practically all the devotees they've made there, they made by teaching yoga and so on. So again, you don't want to second guess the commanders on the ground.
Thank you, Maharaj. And Radhesha comments, when bridge preaching becomes so shallow, it no longer functions to cross.
Yeah.
This purport goes on for quite a considerable greater length, and we are at 7:54. And so let's take one more question and then go to Kirtan. Praveen Krishna Prabhu says, like all avatars come from Krishna, so is Om an expansion or in the same category as Krishna?
Like the avatars, they're Krishna. They're not different from Krishna. So Om is not different from Krishna. What is that? Among syllables, I'm Om. So Krishna's incarnated as a Sat syllable, appears as Om.
Jai. Maharaj, it appears that you have a capable staff of kirtan leaders with you there today. Would they be?
I do have Mukunda Jai and his brother Naveen, and if they're willing to do kirtan, we're in business.
Jai.
Should I still sing just the morning tune as usual?
Morning tune. Even though it's evening over there.
Yeah, I thought about that. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya. Wait, actually, that's not. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya. Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Guru Dasa Jayadvaita Swami Niti Namine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivajakacarya Ashtodharashta Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivajakacarya Ashtodharashta Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Nam Acharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Say Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vas Adi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru Gaura.
Jai, Jai, Jai. Thank you so much, Mukundacharyan Prabhu, and brother of Mukundacharyan Prabhu, whose name I don't yet know. And thank you, Radhesha Prabhu, for helping out with the chat and keeping things moving along. Murai Gupta says, thanks, Maharaj. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Thank you, Murai Gupta Prabhu. And Maharaj, thank you very much for being with us once again.
Thank you. Thank you, Kendra Prabhu.
Jai, Jai.
Thank you all.
Shri Caitanya Caritamrta ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj ki jai.
Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol. Hope to see
Kendra Prabhu Ki Jai. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Radhesha. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, and hope to see you all tomorrow for Srimad-Bhagavatam class. Please share these links so we can expand the kirtan. And if we see each other sooner, so much the better. And Dana Mataji says, Jai, with 4 eyes. Ecstatic. All right,
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Jai.